Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
And welcome to the Back of the Range. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 232. So, as you know, the Elite Amateur Golf Series was announced yesterday at the Golf Coaches Convention in Las Vegas, and wanted to make sure we got some additional information from one of the key players, Andy Priest, who is the executive director of the Southern Golf Association. So we're going to jump into this episode really quickly. Thank you to Andy for his time. This was recorded basically 2 hours after it was announced into an entire ballroom of college golf coaches. So really glad we were able to get this done. A lot of people have been asking, where do I find information on the Elite Amateur Golf Series? Go to their website, eliteamateurgolfseries.org. You can read everything. We got into some topics that I'm sure we'll address later on down the road as well. But they do have an Instagram page, so go ahead and follow that. Remember to follow the Back of the Range on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Let's get right into it. Andy, thanks so much for the time. Welcome to the Back of the Range. How are you?
Great, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm getting through the day. I thought I kind of had, I thought I had the best hand being here in South Florida in December, but, this is a very special episode. I really appreciate you making time. We're literally an hour, I think, after you unveiled the details of the Elite Amateur Golf Series, and I thought it was a little strange that you did it at a Golf Coaches Association of America convention, because these are all summer amateur tournaments. But then I realized that convention is in Las Vegas, Nevada. So who's better than you right now? You're not. You're pretty smart. You know what the hell you're doing.
Well, Vegas is speaks for itself, and believe it or not, it's actually a cloudy day in Las Vegas and a little chilly. So it's a little unusual, but it's. Honestly, we have been, working on this for almost 2 years. And when we every time we kind of got it to a point where we felt like we're ready to take it public, we would start looking at what was the best opportunity to do it. And then as we kind of kept going forward, something would trip up that game plan, whether it was something on our end, whether something didn't work out with maybe an event that we were trying to tie in with to make that presentation.
By the way, COVID, not to throw a wrench in your plans also.
True. Oh yeah. COVID obviously has makes itself known in anything we do nowadays. So yeah, I mean, COVID certainly, had a little bit of a role in that, but as we kind of got toward the end of the summer and into late August, 1st of September, we started looking at the horizon of, all right, well, what's a potential opportunity to, get in front of an audience that this message would resonate with. And that's when we realized the Golf Coaches Convention was still on in December. So we reached out to Greg Grost at the GCAA. And honestly, before I could even ask the question, Greg said, why don't you guys come out to Las Vegas?
there you go.
So it was synergy from day one about coming to Las Vegas. And the GCA has been phenomenally hospitable to us and our group. We have 6 of the 7 organizations here in person, and we had a meeting last night. We had to do a little virtual for a couple members that couldn't be here. So, but yeah, it's been an exciting day. It's been a lot of work, and excited to share a little more detail with you and your listeners.
Yeah, and I'm hearing unsubstantiated reports that some college golf coaches are trading team apparel for free tickets to steak and lobster buffet dinners. Is there any truth to that? I mean, you're on the ground. Have you seen any of that either? No.
I have not. If any of my colleagues are getting that, then they need to share the love.
Okay.
But nothing yet on that front. And believe it or not, all the coaches, they're all dressed up in blazers. And
I saw that.
You don't recognize. I mean, I saw Ryan Hibble from Oklahoma from a distance without his hat and sunglasses on. I didn't know who he was.
Does he look good wearing that sweater vest over like a regular suit and tie? He's probably doing that though, right?
That's absolutely. They, you know, the brand comes out a little bit here and there, but believe it or not, most of them are. You have no idea if they're, you know, a college golf coach or selling insurance.
Unbelievable,
today. So,
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I need to make it there next year to see this in person. So before we get into the Elite Amateur Series, listeners may not be familiar with your career in the game of golf. They may be thinking, okay, well, let's get some background on the guy that's one of the key players that put this Elite Amateur Series together. You are, shall we say, at least a 20-year veteran of being working in the I guess golf association industry. I wouldn't want to put you just in the golf industry because there's so many different areas of that. So International Junior Golf Tour, then moving on to Carolina Golf Association. Now you're the executive director since, I believe, 2015 of the Alabama Golf Association, and then the executive director of the Southern Golf Association. Anything I missed, or does that pretty much cover kind of the quick journey of your time in the game?
That's you must have had to dig deep on the internet to find all that. Yeah, that's exactly right. I started out. I was not a golfer. I was a college baseball player. Went to Campbell University in North Carolina, and I was a graduate assistant in the athletic department and doing operations. But I always loved golf, and Keith Hills is our golf course there at Campbell. And got to my second semester, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. You know, loved college sports, but also loved golf, and I loved operations. So I went to Coach John Crooks at Campbell, who's a legend, and to say, Coach, you know, any way to marry these things together and opportunities out there? And he said, he handed me a job posting for an internship with the Carolinas Golf Association.
Done.
And I applied and spent 4 months in Pinehurst working for the CGA, and the rest is history. As you said, went to IJGT and then got hired back at the Carolinas full time and worked there another 16 years before getting the opportunity to go to Alabama to lead the AGA, and then also 2 years later in 2017 to assume the executive director role of the Southern.
Well, that's a full plate. So obviously we will get into your roles with the Southern Golf Association, the Alabama Golf Association, perhaps at another time. But I think people listening are saying, "Hey, get to the main course here. Let's get to the entree." So Elite Amateur Golf Series. I started hearing whispers of this earlier this year. Kind of started understanding what I thought was going to be happening, what the purpose was, you know, basically creating some sort of a points chase that would include the major or some of the major amateur tournaments throughout the summer, and then some sort of a whether it's exemptions or into tournaments, you know, some sort of a thing at the end for the top achievers, obviously. Why don't you just give me the real quick just kind of layout of what it is in your own words? I mean, you're on that side of it. So for someone that says, "Hey, what's this thing all about?" in a macro, what is the Elite Amateur Golf Series?
I think the simplest way that most people understand is it's the FedEx Cup for elite amateur men's golf. Okay. It's that simple. We've got a summer long 7-event series where, you know, we're going to use WAGR, the World Amateur Golf Ranking, as the point system. And I mean, it's pretty simple. You know, you're going to tee it up in these championships. You play well, you're going to earn more points, and whoever's got the most points at the end of the series is going to be the winner and be afforded some opportunities beyond what they're normally used to getting to play in.
So we're running down the Power 7, so to speak. We're starting with the Sunnehanna in middle of June, Northeast Amateur at the end of June, then the North-South at Pinehurst. That's, you know, June to July 2nd. Trans-Miss in Denver, Southern Amateur at Sea Island, and then Pac Coast out in Portland, and then finally the Western Amateur, which will be obviously in Illinois. So those are the Power 7 that will be making up that points chase. So obviously we know what this is going to bring. It's going to bring exemptions. The top 5 are going to be exempt into the U.S. Amateur. Those top 5 are going to get an exemption into sectional qualifying for the 23 U.S. Open.
Correct.
So we know what the high achievers get. When you were pulling the different players together, whether it's people at the Transmiss, people at the Northeast, when you're kind of forming it, what was kind of the primary goal and objective of it from just a high level? Instead of just like, okay, the top 5 get this, but what is the primary objective of it?
Yeah, Ben, that's a great question. And honestly, the infancy of this series was really just to be a collaboration between elite amateur organizations and events to just work better together. Okay. That was really how all this started. And these conversations go back years. Right. But they started formalizing in February of 2020 with the help of some key players in the industry. And we started, there was a smaller group to start with, and it was actually Sunnehanna, the Western, and Southern. So the 3 of us kind of were the nucleus for this, with some support from so some key players at USGA and some media. So we were able to kind of get the 3 together, and then the pandemic hit. Literally, a month before, a month after we had started coalescing this group together. But we moved forward with it, not knowing what was going to happen, obviously, with the pandemic and our own events that coming year. But we knew that there would be a brighter day ahead. So we knew that there was an opportunity to go ahead, coalesce the group, look at the landscape of, all right, what are the best amateur championships in the country outside the USGA events played in the summer. And, you can look at, the Wagger Power method, and you can look at scratch players as well and right. Look at their rankings. So, it's pretty clear who those were, and nothing, we're not saying, and we'll get into, how we want to help all events, but that was really how we started this, and then we recruited the other 4 events to join us. And the concept was, again, kind of just starting about, hey, how can we work together, not have conflicting dates, share best practices, is there a way to pull resources together for power buying, stuff like that. And then as we kind of just kept going along, these ideas of, hey, well, what if we create a series and incentivize the players to play? But we had no PGA Tour exemptions. We had no Korn Ferry exemptions. We had no USGA exemptions. This was all just us, just right. Throwing it against the wall almost a little bit and say, hey, well, we might be onto something here. So once we got the 7 groups together, then we were able to start having those serious conversations with tour events and the USGA to say, hey, here's what we got going on. What do you think? And obviously it was very well received, and, it's taken a lot of time to work through, governance and nuances of several things. But, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people in the industry see this as, a positive in many ways, just to elevate the men's amateur game. But also, too, I think it shows how groups and organizations from across the country can work together and achieve a common goal. And especially in these modern day and times, that, I think that's a good message to send, that this right. is possible. And we're not all built the same. The Sunnehanna and the Northeast are run by club members. They're club events. Right. Then you got North-South is run by Pinehurst. And then you've got the other 4 championships between Transmiss, the Southern, Pacific Coast Amateur, and the Western Amateur that are run by organizations. So it is a mix of, the different events, how we're made, how we're governed, how we're structured. But we're all aligned behind what we're doing and what the opportunity can be for what we're doing here.
So I obviously mentioned that you had announced this at the golf coaches convention in Las Vegas, and you do it in front of a room full of college golf coaches. And I don't know if there was a Q&A afterwards, or perhaps just in passing, just random discussions. You did put in, basically put on the website, and I'll put links to all your content, social media links, everything will be linked up in this episode in the show notes. But you did put in pretty bold letters, this is just the beginning, it's not the end, we're going to evolve. And I think that's a very important message to set forth, like, hey, this isn't etched in stone, this is going to be flexible. I know it's been very, very new and recent, but has something popped in your head after the website goes live, or after things are kind of put to rest and announced? Are there things that you're like, I think I see something that maybe we need to address maybe in a year or two?
Yeah, no, Ben, you're exactly right. That's the best way to put it. And we firmly believe that, this is new. We're going to make some mistakes on this, but we will evolve. Like I said, it's just the beginning. It's not the end. I mean, who knows down the road? We've got 7 events, but there could be expansion in the future. We're not saying that there will be or there won't be. It's just, that is still a opportunity and potential, for the group to expand as this, group hopefully, keeps growing in stature as we move forward. But yeah, there's been overall the feedback from industry leaders, from golf coaches, has been overwhelmingly positive, without question. They're like, wow, this is great. This is so cool what your guys are doing, but there are certainly some issues that we understand as the college golf landscape is going to be dramatically changing, or already has changed in many ways, with NIL, with the transfer portal.
Oh, you heard about the NIL? You heard about that?
That just came across my phone a few minutes
ago.
You
go. All right, well, better late than never, Andy. But no, you're right. That's I was just thinking about that. It just throws a wrench in that. That's going to be interesting as well. How that relates to the Elite Am Series.
Absolutely. And just sitting in on some conversations here. I mean, nobody really knows where all that's heading in the future as well. But, we just know that, with our exemptions that we have secured, especially with the Corn Ferry, that some of those are in what I would call, not the best time of year for college players, kind of in that spring golf season. So we're going to do the best we can. And I said this in my remarks today to the group that, we want to be good partners in this. We understand, the last thing we want to do is put a all-star, all-American college golfer in a pickle where he's got to potentially choose between going to X event representing his school, or taking an opportunity to go play in a professional start. So we recognize that, and we're going to work over the next few months on how we can, satisfy, making the opportunities what they are for the players that deserve them, but also to respect the college golf season and what the importance of the spring season leading into conference, leading into regionals and the national championships. So we get that, and we want to, I just want to share that with everybody, that we more to come on that, but we will figure out a good outcome for everybody.
And you mentioned, it, like, I think if I'm correct, it's a 3-year kind of a lock on these 7. So it's going to be these 7 tournaments for the next 3 years, and further evaluation at a later date. As you well know, there's so many great tournaments throughout the summer, championships, tournaments, invitationals, and they have great histories. And for now, they're not included. If you were advising a tournament director of one of these championships that's currently on the outside looking in, that says, hey, how do I get involved in this? What's the best way for them to grow their championship over the next 3 years to the point where they're in a position to gain inclusion in the Elite Amateur Series?
Yeah, it's a awesome question, Ben. What, really, we look at things, really there's two big criteria. One, you can't have a conflicting tournament date. That's number one. And in the summer, you've got a limited number of weeks available. You go from the NCAA through the U.S. Amateur, so you're really, you may have 10 weeks in there, and then not only are 7 events, but you throw in the Palmer Cup, and you throw in state amateurs, and you throw in some other things that are going on, qualifying for USAM or even the U.S. Open sectionals. So there's a lot happening, and so I'd say number one, if I was a tournament director, I'd look at your dates potentially. Number two, I think you gotta really work hard to get players to play in your event. And we've our 7 events, they're not new. I mean,
of course,
there's over 680 years of collective championship golf between our 7 organizations. So we've been doing this a long time together. But at the same time, we know there's going to be events that are going to be on top of each other, and that's okay, because there are, according to Greg Gross at the GCAA, there are over 8,500 male college golfers in this country. And, the Southern Am, we can only play 156,
Yeah.
So you just do the math. Those other 8,000 plus college golfers are looking for other opportunities to play. And that's one thing we want to do is help promote the other great championships that are being played in this country. And you got, I could run down a list of them: the Porter Cup, the Monroe, the Rice Planters, the Palmetto Amateur, the Southeastern Amateur, the Southwestern Amateur, just to name a few. That they are great events. They may not be a part of our series, but if there's going to be some really good players that don't unfortunately get the opportunity to play in our tournaments. So there are some really great other options. And not only those events, the Golf Coaches Association has got their summer series that they're trying to get going. Started it last summer and had plans to move full steam ahead this coming summer. So again, there's, we want to use our website and the platform that we have to help educate amateurs about what their opportunities are out there, not just at the national level. Don't forget about your state amateur to play in.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and especially you being the executive director in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, a lot of the state golf associations are missing out on some of their best players because if due to WAGR, if they play in maybe a state amateur and they don't perform at their best, it adversely hurts their WAGR to the point where they say, it's better for me not to play in this, whether it's right or wrong. But, I know Gordon Sargent is your 2-time Alabama State Amateur champion. There may come a time where he has to look, and I'm just naming him just because he happens to be Alabama and you're Alabama. This is not specific to him. Just in general, there's going to be state amateur champions that next summer that are going to be looking at their schedule and saying, yeah, I need to go play in this tournament because it has more of a effect on my WAGR that could help me get into this or this, and maybe Walker Cup, ramifications. Has there been anything? I know that I'm throwing a lot at you, but has there been any discussion to maybe provide incentives to a state amateur champion? If you come play this and you win the state am, that gets you into a north-south, that gets you into this, so that maybe those mid-tier guys that aren't at that elite level, they're like, hey, maybe I go play in this because if I win, I get in the mix. I get to get into these tournaments, and all I need is a shot, and maybe I make a top 10 at a Sunnehanna, and now the gates are open.
Right, exactly. No, it's a great question, Ben, and I guess I'll try and tackle in different ways here. So I'll start with Wagger and the power. And I don't want to speak for the USJ. That's not my job. But what I can say is they are doing the best they can to take the feedback and work with the system. They know it's not perfect. We know it's not perfect, and they've gotten a lot of feedback from all players in the game, not just players themselves, but certainly coaches, administrators, you name it. They know, but they're also partners with the RNA. So there's, the RNA's got a big footprint across the world, and this is the World Amateur Golf Ranking. Yeah. So they know that there's some things that need to be tweaked probably in the system. But to their defense, they're, when they converted to the power method, that it happened at the beginning of the pandemic. And so some things that should have be rolling out of the system aren't there yet, but will be over time. So, it will improve, and they're already taking measures to improve the system. So hopefully down the road, not next year, but hopefully down the road, that some of those, situations where a player is looking at, do I play or not, because of an event's power may not be high enough that it may drop my ranking, may hopefully change into something, a better outcome for everybody. So I'll leave that there. As far as the state amateurs go, and I made this comment to my colleagues in the Allied Golf Association community that, just my belief that, golfers, they almost go up a ladder, as they become better and better and better, they're going to get better opportunities. And I think they graduate at some point from the level that they're at. You hear, well, don't move. It's like, we'll start at junior golf. You may have a hot shot 11-year-old that, well, I want to play up in the, the 13 to 15 division. Well, are you beating the kids in the 11 and under division first? Yeah. Okay. If you are, all right, well, let's move you up. So it's kind of that philosophy is what I believe in, that, I believe players, they get to a point where they graduate beyond maybe the state amateur level. And, a couple of, Gordon Sargent, great example, 2-time state champion. Couldn't be prouder of him. Also, I want to give a shout out to Nick Dunlap from Alabama, who won the U.S. Junior this year. So, we've had a great year of showcasing some of our great talent that we have in our state. But, and I haven't talked to Gordon in a while, but, he's earned the right, in my opinion, to, play in what he wants to. I hope he comes back and defends for a third time, because, he could set himself, historically separate from a lot of people by winning the state amateur 3 years in a row. Yeah. But if he doesn't, I certainly understand that he's got a bigger goals in mind, and we want to support those as well. So that's just an example. Since you brought up Gordon, I think that's a great example of a player that has supported and played in state championships. He's won our state junior. So is Nick Dunlap. But again, we hope to keep him playing in our championships as long as we can. But I do believe at a point that, the opportunities come where, they've got a choice to make, and, we can't take it in a negative way, that if they decide to go to a bigger and better opportunity than playing locally or at a state level.
Very well said. Yeah, I mean, it's a interesting way. I mean, it's tough to navigate either way. I could easily see a kid that's like, hey, it's time to graduate. I have an opportunity to play here. Then there's going to be some that are like, man, like you said, it'd be really cool to win 2 or 3, or, maybe they just don't like to travel as much. So there's just all sorts of different, variations of people's schedules and what their goals are. So I'm going to get you out of here. I know it's been a long day, and hey, you're in Vegas, man. You got to have some fun out there. How will fans and players and coaches and everyone, how do we track the points list? Because if you're going to ask me to go decipher the Wagger website, we're going to just wrap this up right now, because that's just, we're not doing that, Andy. Don't say that. Don't do that.
Yeah. It's going to be it's going to be as straightforward. And Ben, you just hit on a great point that as we were developing this system, Wagger was not necessarily our first choice. We were thinking, well, do we develop our own system and, this and that? Because we wanted to be simple. But after speaking with the USGA and their support of what we're doing, we believe how we can present the Wagger results to the public. It'll be clear where you stand. You may have to layer down, the event, the power, how many points you got at that event, but it will be clear that you'll be able to see that Ben Adelberg played these events, got these points. Here's his total. This is how it worked. And you can drill down to the event level and see how, Ben played in the Sunnehanna, how he compared against the rest of the field. So, our goal is to make it as straightforward as possible, just a ranking, 1 through whatever it turns out to be. Players will know exactly where they stand week over week as the summer goes along. And that'll be available on our website at eliteamateurgolfseries.org. And in our social channels, too, we'll have links. Sure. As well.
Well, I was concerned there for a second that you weren't having any fun in Vegas, but you just said I was playing in the Elite Amateur Series, so clearly you've been having some fun. Something's been you've been getting into something out there. All right, so Andy, I feel that this is a great kind of a 30,000-foot view of what the Elite Amateur Golf Series is. I appreciate you taking time away from the convention in Vegas to kind of walk me and listeners through it. I have a feeling we'll be talking quite a bit next summer and doing some follow-up. So for now, happy holidays, and thanks for stopping by the Back of the Range.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate all that you do and your support of the amateur game. It's very cool what you're doing, and we thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and your listeners today.
And there you have it. Special thanks to Andy Priest for joining me on this episode here at the Back of the Range. Don't forget, eliteamateurgolfseries.org. The link is in the show notes of this episode, as well as links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Every single episode is available at thebackoftherange.com. We'll see you next time here at the Back of the Range.